Shalom, and welcome to the Parasha Pod. I'm Rav Mordechai Rosenberg, here with Rav Menachem Leibtag, and we are talking Torah together.
Parashat Toldot.
Parashat Toldot. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, it's time to learn. So, we have a very full, action-packed Parasha this week, and it starts off with...
I'd call it question-packed instead of action-packed.
They're very much question-packed. It starts off with Rivka, who has finds out she's got pregnant with twins, and she's not so sure about the situation, and so she gets told by Hashem that she's got two nations that will come from her, and she's told V'rav yavod sa'ir, seemingly the elder will serve the younger,
or the greater. Rav means
right. The greater will
doesn't mean a rabbi there.
Right. So then the question that I've always wondered about this is, it seems to me that this is some kind of prophecy that Eisav will be like a servant to Yaakov, or perhaps the nation of Eisav will be a servant to the Jewish people. And I'm just wondering, are we still waiting for this to come true? Did it ever come true? What's going on with it?
So the word la'avod, to serve, is not always something negative. I think Moshe Rabbeinu was called Eved Hashem.
Right.
He loves his job. And Eliezer is Eved Abraham, we talked about last week.
Yeah.
Now, a servant who loves working for his master is good, but why would Eisav, let's say Eisav is a nation as opposed to just a person, and Yaakov is a nation, we get his name changed later to Israel. What would cause Eisav to want to serve or look up to and be in awe of Israel? It's up to us. Now, we have the potential to be a nation that other nations look up to, and we have the potential that other nations can serve us. Now, I think later in the Parsha, Yitzchak is going to give a blessing to who he thinks is Eisav, but really it's Yaakov. But remember his blessing? Ya'avducha amim yishtachvu elecha le'umim. Other nations shall look up to you. What's it mean, Ya'avducha amim? Does that mean you get to sit back and they're going to polish your shoes? Or does it mean you have the potential to be a nation? Now, I'll share with you how David HaMelech in Tehillim understood this. Because in Tehillim Ayin Bet, I think, if I'm not mistaken, David HaMelech gives a sort of a mizmor. It's the end of book 2 in Tehillim. And it's called Lishlomo. It's a mizmor written by King David, sort of a ethical will to his son Shlomo. And he gives his hope of how Shlomo will develop. And he's going to hope that he'll be a king doing justice and righteousness. Because he read last week's, Parashat Ba'era, he must have listened to the podcast about we're chosen to do tzedek and mishpat, to do justice and righteousness. So what did he say? In Ayin Bet in Tehillim, Lishlomo, Elohim mishpatecha lemelech, b'tzidkatcha l'tein melech. L'ben melech. In other words, God should help you become king, to do mishpat and tzedakah. Okay? Yadin amcha b'tzedek, v'yanecha b'mishpat. You can't miss the emphasis that you should be a king who's known for doing justice and righteousness, as King David was.
Right. Twice in two psukim we have mishpat.
Then it talks about you should be like the sun and the moon that will come up later on in a later dream. And then, what's say later on? In Pasuk Yud Aleph, after other nations will come and bow down to you, here in Pasuk, I think, Tet, Lefanav yichru tz'im v'oivav b'afrat. In other words, other people from far away will bow to you. The kings from far away will come and serve you. They'll bring you presents. Pasuk Yud Aleph, right? Vayishtachvu l'cha chol melachim kol goyim ya'avduhu.
Right, same pair.
It's exactly
words.
Yitzchak's blessing finally coming true. Because according to Tehillim, when does Yitzchak's blessing to Yaakov, thinking he's Eisav, come true? When Am Yisrael is doing tzedek mishpat, we're doing justice and righteousness, and other nations are so impressed with our behavior, with our national behavior, what we do with our wealth, etc., that they're impressed by us. They're not us. They come to learn from us. That's Isaiah's famous vision in chapter 2, that other nations will come, ki mitzion tetzei Torah. All the nations will flow to us like a river. Look at the next line. Why would they come and bow down to us? Ki yatzil evyon meshavea va'ani ve'ein ozer lo yechos al dal ve'evyon v'nafshot evyonim yoshia. What will happen? Why will other nations come and bow down to us and serve us? Not serve us like, but be in awe of us, want to identify with us. Why? Because we help the destitute, the poor people. We help them from their poverty, especially those who no one else is helping. And we have rahmat, we have chusah, we have mercy on the poor. and the destitute and the people who are alone. And the Evion is like worse than a poor person. Our government and our king and our leadership, their focus of their kingdom is to make sure we have a nation that takes care of those in need. And we become a model for other nations to learn from. Shlomo is a tremendously wealthy nation, with great economy, big, strong army. He's so strong that there's time of peace during his time. But other nations will serve us, not doing our housework, but rather they'll be impressed by us. They'll look up to us. We'll be their model nation, which is, I think, the idea of being an Avamon Goyim. And that's the deeper purpose of the blessing. Now, knowing it's a blessing, it's a potential, it doesn't mean it will happen. And we don't pray that, other people will do our housework, but rather, we have the potential to be a nation that other nations can look up to, but we have to live up to that potential. And that's why it's so important.
I see also in the next pasuk, Vayechi ve'yiten lo mizahav shva. He will live and receive the gold of Shva, which
that's the Queen of Sheba visiting.
Queen of Sheba.
And what does she see? She's impressed by her visit and says, God made you king to do mishpat and tzedakah. That's chapter 10, in case you didn't, chapter 10 in Sefer Melachim, 1 Kings, Melachim Aleph, chapter 10, verse 1 through 10. But what happens? Malchat Shva hears the name of Shlomo for the name of God. Shlomo's great because he's wealthy and strong and wise, and the Queen of Sheba hears it, but everything Shlomo's doing is for the name of God, for God's reputation. Right. And finally, we reach a high point in Jewish history in the time period of Shlomo.
Right, and so she gets the idea. She even says that expression of
Mishpat Tzedakah, because she was in the podcast on Parasha Ba'era.
Nice, and so essentially, this blessing V'rav Yavod Sa'ir doesn't mean the elder will serve the younger like a servant or a slave, but rather will admire, will respect, will want to.
And remember, blessings are potential.
Right.
That will be. There's a beautiful midrash that at the end of Sefer Breshit, when Yaakov blesses his children, it says, "V'zot asher diber lem aviem u'berechotam." Here's what the father said to him and blessed them. But it begins with "V'zot." This is what the blessing was. After all 12 children are blessed, the midrash connects it to "V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe." It says, on what condition will these blessings come true? Now, this is the bracha, "V'zot habracha," if you follow "V'zot haTorah." The rabbis are right on the mark. Right. And that's the theme in Devarim, because what brings blessing? If you keep my mitzvot, all the tochachot, keep my mitzvot, you'll be blessed. And the greatest blessing that you can be a blessing. Mm-hmm. So it's not our goal is, we should sit back and relax and eat grapes and let all the non-Jews come in and do our housework. But rather, we should be a nation setting a model for other people to learn from. And we have the potential to fulfill that, but if we live up to that potential, that's our challenge. And that's why God gave us the Torah.
And so in terms of when it can, or when it did or has come true, so in the days of Shlomo, maybe
God
it
gives
did
us,
come true.
God can always give us the opportunities. Mm-hmm. We have to know that's an opportunity. It's never over. We have to live up to that.
Right. And so it could be any time.
It can be any time, but it's up to us.
Nice. Thank you very much. I've always wondered that, and I really appreciate you. I feel like you eased my mind on that one. Okay. So next.
That's why Tehillim is like, I see Tehillim as one of the earliest commentators on Chumash, because sometimes things are a little complex in Chumash. Tehillim gives a beautiful insight on what all these stories are about.
Beautiful. And it is a beautiful thing to look in this Ein Bet and see the clear links, the clear references.
Yeah, there's no map. Tehillim Ein Bet is based on Sefer Breshit, especially the brachot of this week's Parasha of Yaptuch Amim.
Beautiful. Okay, so heading back to our Parasha. What is Yaakov thinking of buying a birthright for a bowl of soup, lentil soup? I mean, I like lentil soup, but like, what is going on with trying to buy the birthright? Is that effective? Is he expecting it to give him some rights? Yitzchak doesn't seem to be aware of it or acknowledge it later on. Yeah. So what? That's
a question. Is Bechorah, being the firstborn, is it a commodity? Can you sell it? And probably the bigger question is, did it work?
Right.
Does it stand up in court? Mm-hmm. Did they sign the contract or something like that?
Yeah, especially since Eisav, at least maybe he's exaggerating, but he seems like he says, I'm going to die, and so I'm so hungry, and you're not going to give me any food.
Yeah, when I read the story, it sounds like what's called leverage.
Right.
That what Yaakov is doing is called oshek in the Bible. That's like terrible. Here's a person, he's about to die. If he doesn't get that bowl of soup, he's going to die. And I'm taking advantage of a situation. I'm doing a business deal. So I'll give you, I'll give you something to eat to keep you alive if you sell me your whole life kind of thing. That's terrible, wouldn't it be?
It would be.
I wouldn't expect that from my ancestors.
Right.
Rather, the question is, why does Yaakov want the Bechorah? Now, what does it mean to be the Bechor? Why would someone want to buy the Bechorah? Does the Bechor gain something?
Well, maybe a double inheritance?
Yeah. From a financial point of view, he gets double. When the father passes away, he gets twice as much as we divide everything up, he gets a double portion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but why does the Bechor get a double portion? Because the assumption is when the father passes on, the oldest son takes responsibility for the family. So it's not a bonus because you were born first. It's not privilege, it's responsibility. And the reason the Bechor gets a double portion, to enable him to fulfill his responsibility.
Of financially supporting
the family. Now, but the Bechor's job is to run the family, to be in charge of the family, to take leadership. And the question is, does Yaakov want the Bechorah because he wants the money behind it? Or does he want the family leadership? Now, if you're working in a group, or let's say in a company or in a family, and someone's supposed to take over the company, and you know this guy's a disaster, it won't work, and you think you can do a better job, and you have an opportunity to take that job, so I can do something to take the opportunity. Now, if there's someone who doesn't want the job, and really couldn't care less, he'd sell it for a bowl of soup. And the big question is, when Eisav says, I'm going to die, he's saying, I'm going to die in 2 minutes if I don't get that bowl of soup? Or does he mean, I couldn't care less, I'm going to die one day, who cares about the future? If the Bechorah is leadership of this nation that God promised Abraham Avinu, being the Bechor means you're going to be the person who's going to take leadership of the Jewish people. Remember God told Abraham, I'm going to command your children, teach their children to follow the ways of God, to do tzedek and mishpat. That's the purpose of our chosenness. Mm-hmm. If Eisav sees no value in that, he's just living for today. He's a hunter, he's a man, he's a regular person, he's normal. It's not sinning. He didn't see any value in that leadership role. So he doesn't care about being the Bechor. It means nothing to him, where it means a lot to Yaakov. And if Yaakov has opportunity to take the family leadership, and Eisav is willing to sell it for a bowl of soup, then what Yaakov is doing, he's actually doing something which you might question its validity, but at least there's logic to it. Now, so again, there's two questions when you read the section. When it says, when Eisav says, I'm going to die, right? So who cares about the Bechorah? Does it mean I'm going to die in a couple minutes? Or am I dying of starvation kind of thing? Or I'm going to die in the future, and who cares about the future? Now, he just came back from a long day of hunting, okay? And he's a strong guy, remember? He's an ish, he's a real man. He's tired. You come home from day of work, you want the remote control, you want your beer, you got your feet up on the couch, etc. And it's not he's going to die. He's not on his deathbed. He's a healthy person. It's just he wants a bowl of soup, and he couldn't care less about the Bechorah. Now, the last line of the first Aliyah, there's what's called a shiput mikray, when we have the judgment of the Torah about what happened. The last line is Vativez Eisav et Bechorah,
right? Which
means Eisav sort of how we say buz. He didn't think much of the Bechorah. Now, is that because of what happened? Got it? It was after this story, Eisav couldn't care about the Bechorah, or is that the reason why it happened? That was is the bottom line message of Chumash. The reason why Eisav sold his Bechorah for a bowl of soup, because Eisav couldn't care less about the Bechorah. And I think that's what's really going on. Esav's not a bad guy. He just doesn't have a vision for a long-term future. He's normal. He wants to live his normal life. He's a hunter. He's a man. He's got a family. And he makes food. He's a nice guy. He's wonderful. He honors his father, etc. He doesn't have a vision of international leadership. He doesn't want to be a nation representing God. He's just a normal person. Nothing wrong with that. Yaakov has this long-term vision of being this great nation, and he thinks he can do a better job than Eisav, maybe. And it should be his responsibility. And therefore, you can totally understand what he's doing. Now, did it work or not, that's a different question. Because who got the Bechorah in the end? Yaakov or Eisav?
Bechorah?
Yeah,
like Yaakov got it. When you got the blessings at the end of the Parasha.
Okay, so now here's the next big question. What's going on with Yitzchak, right?
Right.
Okay, like, is he blind to Esav's behavior?
Right. Why is Rivka seemingly the one that decides that Yaakov should get this big blessing, and that has to dress him up, but Yitzchak is okay with giving it to Eisav?
And why can't they talk about it? Why don't they discuss it? That's the biggest problem.
Yeah.
When Yitzchak wants to give a blessing to Eisav, right? How do you understand the blessing he wants to give? What's the choice between? When he has to pick between Yaakov or Eisav, what's he choosing between? What's the purpose of the choosing?
Well, it seems to me that at least Rivka believed that the purpose of giving that blessing was to make Yaakov, in a sense, the chosen one, carrying the mission of Abraham.
Right. The family leader or the only one. You understand the difference?
Right.
Because we know Avram Avinu, one wife and one Pilegesh, they had one child from Sarah.
Right.
Now, God decided only Yitzchak and not Ishmael. That was God's decision.
Yeah.
Because that was chapter 17. That was when, after Brit Milah, God told Avram, you'll have a child from Sarah. Her name now would be Sarah instead of Sarai. His name will be Yitzchak. And Bet Briti Akim et Yitzchak. Yishmael will be blessed. He can have a blessing. He can be great. But the covenant to be a nation representing God, that's going to be with Yitzchak. That was God's decision. Avram would have been happy with both. But God decided only Yitzchak. Now, what's Yitzchak thinking? Remember there was a famine in the land? And God told Yitzchak, remember, don't go down. You can say, probably this one's not so bad. But God told Yitzchak, you don't need to go to Egypt. It's a different type of a famine. Stay in the land. Now, he gives a reason. What's he tell Yitzchak? Gor ba'aretz hazot ve'emcha v'arechacha, chapter 26, verse 3.
Right.
Okay? Why? Ki lecha ulezarecha atinat kol atzot el. You and your offspring will get this land. Okay? V'yitbarechu b'cha kol, and your offspring will get this blessing.
Yeah.
Now, if you heard that, who should be blessed? Only one of the children or all the children?
Seems all the children.
Listen, all the children. Why not? Same mother, Rivka, twins. Why would anyone think that both children wouldn't be chosen? Now, we know they're not because we read Chumash. But Yitzchak has every reason to think that both of his children will be the Jewish people. Why shouldn't he think that? It can't be that every generation picks only one child because it wouldn't be a nation.
Right.
Now, we know this choosing process ends with Yaakov. Yaakov's chosen, and then all of his kids, and then everyone's chosen. But if you notice in Breshit, there's a filtering process. We call it Bechira, where God decides, for some reason, it's going to take 3 generations until we finally figure out who the Jewish people are going to be. So from Avram's offspring, only Yitzchak. From Yitzchak, only Yaakov. Finally, from Yaakov, everybody. We know that because we read Chumash. The Avot don't know that because they didn't read Chumash yet. They didn't have Chumash yet. And therefore, Avram thinks they can all be chosen. God tells him, no, only Yitzchak. But the first thing God tells Yitzchak, when there's a famine, he has every reason to think that both his children would be chosen. Why not? And therefore, what's the only question? Who's going to lead the family? Now, if I have 2 children, one's Yeshiva Bacher, sitting and learning all day long. Got it? He's an Ish Tamash Eladim. And another one is an Ish Sadeh. He's a doer. He's married already. He has a family. He's a hunter. And I have to run a country. Who's going to run the country? Who's going to serve in the army? Who's going to run the government? Who's going to be involved in day-to-day things? And who's going to be in charge of education? Now, if I have to divide the government, if I have 2 sons, and they're both chosen, and I have to divide family leadership to 2 children, right? What's called the macher. I'll take political leadership, financial leadership. I'll give that to Eisav, because he's good at, and he needs to be involved in that. And I'll take the education, give that to Yaakov. What we call later Yisachar Zvulun. One does one does the other. But assuming that Yitzchak thinks that both children are chosen, the question isn't who's the only one, the question is who's the family leader. And knowing his children, and being a bit blind, pun intended, to the bad behavior of Eisav, he thinks Eisav could be the leader, and doesn't mean Yaakov wouldn't get a bracha, but he wouldn't be the leader. He can sit and learn. I don't want to get into modern day politics about how to divide up between learning and serving your country. Now, when Rivka hears that Yitzchak's about to give a blessing, what does she think? She's getting involved. And what's beautiful about the story, everyone is sure they're doing the right thing. Now, it turns out to be a disaster. But so many stories in Chumash where everyone thinks they're doing the right thing, but there's a terrible misunderstanding of what the right thing to do is. Now, why does Rivka think that only one is chosen?
Well, she was told by Hashem.
That what? That's not 2 brothers. That's 2 nations.
2 nations, right?
That's Shnei Goyim b'vitnei. That's a chiddush. That's whoa. That's a chiddush. That comes to her surprise. Because Rivka thought both her children would be chosen. But what did God tell her? No, that's not 2 brothers. That's 2 nations in your womb. And only one of them is going to. She understands that meaning only one will be chosen, and it'll be the younger one, not the older one. The younger one and not the weaker one, not the stronger one.
So why didn't she tell that to
Oh,
Yitzchak?
there's a beautiful Ramban. I'll just share it with you. I think this is what he says, but either way, it's a nice idea. That when they got married, remember Rivka was young and he was Yeshiva Bacher, she was sure he knew everything, right? So if God told her, Kal v'chomer, it's for sure, if I know, if God told me, for sure Yitzchak knows, okay? And therefore, she was sure that Yitzchak knew. As they got older, what she realized, he doesn't know so much. No, that's too true to life sometimes. As she gets older and sees more. Now, but Ramban has a beautiful insight. What was Rivka afraid of? If Rivka told Yitzchak, Rivka was afraid that Yitzchak wouldn't believe her. If Rivka tells Yitzchak, 20 years ago, 40 years, whatever it was, 50, 60 years ago, when I was pregnant, God came to me and told me it's only one and it's the younger one. What would Yitzchak think? You love your son so much, you're blinded. You hallucinated. There's no way that you could have gotten Nevuah and I didn't get Nevuah. I'm not saying Yitzchak would have thought that, but Rivka thinks that Yitzchak might think that. It's called insecurity in a nice way. It's such a beautiful insight that Ramban has on that case. But he explains Rivka kept it to herself and thought if she would tell Yitzchak, Yitzchak wouldn't believe her, and then it would ruin the whole thing. More than that, what I want to add is that I think Rivka sees this. If God told her and not Yitzchak, then I call it Rivka's secret. No, it's something Rivka needs to know. It's her. There's a reason God gave her that nevuah, and she's not sure when it's going to need it, but she's holding this nevuah in the back of her head, and she knows sometime in her life she has to use it. And then when she hears that Yitzchak's about to give this blessing to Eisav, that's why God gave me the nevuah. Now, this is my tafkid. This is my job in life. It's my job to intervene and make it happen. No, it's because I'm so sure I'm right, and because God gave me the nevuah. And she's so sure that she's right, and it's her job to make sure that Yitzchak gets the blessing, that Yaakov gets the blessing. Because again, does she think that Yitzchak chooses only one or both? We're not sure, but she's sure that blessing's got to go to Yaakov, and she's so sure she's right. She's sure Yitzchak's going to fall for it. You follow? Because when she tells Yaakov to go get the blessing, to bring him some food, you get blessed. What's Yaakov say? Rivka doesn't tell Yaakov to lie. Of course not. She wouldn't tell her that. What'd she tell Yaakov? Yaakov says, maybe he's going to find out who I am and he'll curse me instead of a blessing. She says, it's not going to happen. You know what? If it happens, I'll take the curse. Remember, when she says that, she doesn't want the curse. But what she's saying, it's not going to happen. Yeah. It means I'll take the bullet. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. Because she's so sure she's right. And Yaakov goes listening to his mother. Now, Yaakov is hoping to get away with it. And what happens? Unlike what Rivka told him would happen, what did Yitzchak ask Yaakov? Hey, who is this? And Yaakov has to give an answer. Are you my son? If Yaakov would lie, if Yaakov would tell the truth, oh no, I'm Yaakov, right? And mommy told me to do it, what would Yitzchak do? Would give a curse instead of a blessing. Who would get the curse? His mother. So Yaakov, out of his love for his mother, has to lie. Because he's hoping he can still get away, and he does get away with it. In other words, why is Yaakov lying? Not because he's a liar, because he cares about his mother. Now, he didn't want to lie. That wasn't his plan. No one wanted to lie. But that's what happens when everyone's sure they're doing the right thing. So and Yaakov cares so much about his mother. Yeah.
Just to stop, he thought he was going to come in and
get away with it.
And his father wouldn't have to make him make a direct lie. But he did know that he would be tricking him.
He wasn't expecting any conversation. What did Rivka say? Oh, Daddy wants to give a blessing. Anyone brings him food. Remember? What did Yitzchak tell Eisav? Bring me some food so I can bless you before I die. He wants to give him a blessing. So I know Yaakov should get the blessing. So we said, Yaakov, you know what? I'll make the food. I know what he likes. Been feeding him for all these years, and you'll get a blessing. Can't hurt, and he won't notice. He just likes his food. Rivka's sure she's right.
Then why does he have to make himself a little hairy if he wasn't?
To make sure, just to make sure he won't ask any questions. Just as a what do you call it? Because Yaakov asked already, so as a safety, just to make sure it won't happen.
Right.
But she's sure it won't happen. She's so sure she says, I'll take the curse. And guess what? It happened. Right. And now Yaakov is faced with this problem. His father asked him, who are you? He can't say, hey, I'm Yaakov. Why? Because he'll get angry and the curse will go on his mother.
Right.
So he has to say, and maybe he said with his fingers crossed, the thing, or ani, remember, like Rashi says, Eisav b'chorecha, you can get, which a good lawyer, you can get around. and by in the end, Yitzchak does fall for it, doesn't he? And he gives him the blessing. Do you remember? It worked at the trick with the Eisav.
I've always kind of really wondered about that. Like, Hakol kol Yaakov ve'yadayim yedei Eisav. Like, what is it more easy
That's the message of the story.
to fake? Is it?
No, that's Sefer Breshit. But
Right.
go back. I'll tell you why the story makes sense. It's this little time. We have time for a little humor.
Yeah.
Not that humor, but there's 5 senses, aren't there?
Yep.
There's sight, there's smell, there's taste, there's hearing, and there's touching, right?
Yep.
Now, do we have those in this story?
We've got, well, he's
The beginning
missing,
starts with sight.
right.
There's no sight, okay?
He's missing his side. We've got the kol Yaakov.
We have the hearing.
Right.
You have to yourself.
Hearing. We've got the touch. The yedei Eisav. We've got the taste.
We have the taste, right?
Right.
We have the smell. Remember?
What's the smell?
Kireach
Oh,
hasadeh.
Yeah, Kireach hasadeh. Yeah. Okay.
We have all 5, right?
Nice.
So that's my joke. The story makes sense.
5 senses. Okay. Good.
There's something going on there.
Right.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But what's important, though, is that who's this blessing going to? So we have to listen. What is the blessing that Yitzchak's planning on giving?
Right.
Because we're assuming he's picking the only one. But when you read the blessing carefully, he's not picking one over the other. What's he saying? Who's going to be the leader?
See, this is what I've had a theory about this for a while, that Rivka actually got this bit wrong, that she suspected that Yaakov was going to
Give the bechira. Make the only one,
get
yeah?
the bechira, the chosen one. And actually, that was never Yitzchak's intention, because we can see that at the end of the Parasha, even after he has given away the brachot, he then gives Yaakov an extra bracha, which is, he says, Menachem give you the blessing of Abraham Avinu.
You're saying there could be a misunderstanding between husband and wife about the future of their children and how to raise them?
I'm
joking, of course.
The idea that Rivka suspected that that Yitzchak's plan was to give the chosenness, but actually that was never his plan at all.
That's right. Because Rivka thought that this was the big moment, who's going to be the only one.
Right.
Especially, maybe she thought maybe Yitzchak does know. She doesn't know. Mm-hmm. But she's worried. But if that's the case, then for sure she's got to be involved.
Right.
Now, Yitzchak is not choosing the only one. He's choosing the family leader. What's the proof? What's he say? I'll follow Ebenezer here. The first blessing is what's called Parnasa. It's called being wealthy.
Right.
Why? What's the first one? Chapter 27, verse 28.
Yep.
Right? God should give you, anyone who davens Mosai Shabbos, that extra long thing, knows it by heart. What should God give you? You should be a rich man. Right? That can be shared, we'll see later on. But that's wealth. It's the same blessing later that Yosef's going to get from Yaakov. And they're all chosen, but Yosef gets, you're the Mefarnish, you're the one in charge of the economy.
Right.
And he's fitting because that's what Yosef was good at.
So
now the second blessing is, listen carefully, I'll follow Ebenezer. You'll be the leader of a nation that other nations will bow down to.
Yeah.
That's not talking about your brother. You'll be the head of a family that'll be wealthy, and you have the wealth to run the family. You're the leader. You're the leader of that family, of a family that other nations bow down to and respect. We saw that in light of Tehillim 72. Within the family, within the family. Mm-hmm. So what's that say? You're the Bechor, you're the leader. I'm blessing you. You should have the financial ability to run this nation, to make king, and you'll be a nation other nations will look up to. Ebenezer says this isn't a blessing for either one. It's a blessing for the Jewish people. Now we'll see this blessing is going to come true the next generation, because Yaakov's going to give these blessings to Yosef and Yehuda.
Right.
Will be Yehuda. The bracha of mi rov dagam v'tirosh is going to be. Later we'll see it's going to be also Yosef's streams, but that's too complicated for now. We'll save that for later.
Chapter 27, verse 28 is saying you should have economic success, you should be rich, and 29 is you should be the leader, but leader within the family, assuming that there is going to be
because you're both chosen
between the brothers.
Yeah. Why should Yitzchak think differently?
Right.
Okay, and then explains what he's doing. Now, Eisav comes in and says, "What? Hey, what happened?
Yeah.
What's Yitzchak tell him? Your brother came and told not di bracha, but your bracha. Your brother came and thing, and he took your blessing. What's Eisav asked? Don't you have any other blessing? Mm-hmm. He says, "No, your brother took your blessing to be the leader, but you can also get a blessing, and therefore, how does he bless Eisav? The same blessing. That what? Also, mital shamayim, you can also be a wealthy man. You can both have wealth. There's plenty of that for everybody. Within the family, that's what you are. You're a man of the sword. Because he's in charge. But if he falls down, the second part's a little complicated. But when he goes down, you'll take over. It's unclear exactly what that means. It seems to me like he's in charge, but if he falls, you can take over. Parashim go in different directions. When he'll leave the country, maybe he'll take over, whatever it might be. But none of this ever happens in the end of the day. Anyhow, why? Because it turns out it has nothing to do with the Bechorah. We're not there yet. But Bechorah, family leadership, only begins when the Bechira process is over. I'll try to explain that. There's a process that takes 3 generations in Sefer Breshit of only one child being chosen. Only Abraham, only Yitzchak, only Yaakov. Got it?
Right.
After we have the nation, we have Yaakov, and all children are chosen. Once I have a team, I need a captain.
I see.
But until I have that team, it's only one child. So there's no point in talking about Bechorah, family leadership, until the family is established. So the whole argument, who's the Bechor, ended up becoming meaningless. The whole sale in the beginning of the Parsha was all based on the assumption they're both chosen. At the end of the day, by the time Chumash is over, Yitzchak has his own nation. So now he's a wonderful son. He comes to the funeral.
Yaakov has his own nation.
Yaakov and Eisav, they're both their own nation.
Right.
Yaakov, they're both their own nation, but they're different nations, which is what God told Rivka. Shnei goyim b'vitnech. But only one of them will be chosen.
So only once you have a complete team, is it relevant to talk
about the Bechor,
team captain. Nice.
Now, why is it so complicated? Basov, Yaakov will be chosen,
right.
But Yaakov can't get this blessing yet. You know why? Because he's not ready yet. Right? Like he needs to go to Levin University. Yaakov needs to go to training, and the most beautiful pasuk of the whole parsha is Hakol Kol Yaakov Yadam Midei Eisav. I hear the voice of Yaakov, who's an Ish Torah, he's a learner, etc. But his hands are like Eisav. To be the Jewish people, this I heard from my Rebbe Rabbi Ben Nun. This is called the Hezder report. To get the name change from Yaakov to Israel, for the process to be over, I need someone who has both traits together. The Jewish people need to be Yaakov and Eisav, which is later will be David HaMelech in Tanakh. He looks like Eisav, but he has a voice. Remember, he writes Tehillim, but he has the hands of Eisav. How do you become a nation? On the one hand, you're involved in economy, you're involved in an army and fighting in war and running a country, but at the same time, you're sitting and learning and you're studying Torah and you have values and morals and things. To be a nation representing God, I need to be a nation like every other nation. I have to have an economy, I have to have an army, I have to have, a political system, etc. But within that nation, I need a goal and a focus of morals and justice and righteousness and what we call Torah.
Right.
Now, it's very easy to divide that.
Tzedek and Mishpat. Tzedek being the call of Yaakov and Mishpat being...
You can look at it that way, or just basically, whoever you are, you're learning the Torah to make sure when you're running the country, you're doing the country with Tzedek and Mishpat. That's what Tehillim Ein Bet was about. And because that's the ultimate goal of the nation, which is difficult, because it's very easy to say, let people want to learn, let them sit and learn. Let people want to be secular and let them do that. We see to this day, it's a very logical understanding, and I can prove it to you that a lot of people think it's a logical thing to do, that let some people sit and learn and let others sit and do the army and serve, but keep it separated. But to have that in the same person, to be able to lift up a sword and fight and be involved in an economy in your nation, at the same time sit and learn, that's difficult. It's very difficult. It's very hard to keep up to that. But that's the challenge of being the Jewish nation. So that I heard from my Rebbe Rabbi Ben Nun, that's how he understands the story, that line is all about Hakol Kol Yaakov Yadam Eisav. And therefore, the final name change that Yaakov is going to get to Yisrael, which starts the nation, only comes when?
After he wrestles with the...
First, he has to wrestle. That's his final test. That's his final. Where he has to be able to wrestle. He can't run away. He's got to fight.
He's got to fight.
He's got to fight to prove that. Now, he limps because of that fight. That limping is beautiful, isn't it? He has to fight. He comes out limping. Because there's a price you pay for fighting. It's not ideal. Your core character has to be a Kol Kol Yaakov. Am Yisrael is the Kol of Yaakov. That's our core character. And you put on as a not a mask, as a costume. Sometimes you have to wear the costume Eisav. That's not your essence. Your essence is Yaakov, who has to act sometimes like Eisav. But if you're just Eisav, it's not good. If you're just Yaakov, it's not going to work. Right. I have to be, and that's how he explained. That's such a beautiful understanding, which is so meaningful today. It's worth a whole story in the Chumash. It's worth a book to understand, because it's difficult to be a nation doing both. It's easy just to divide them.
So does Yaakov Does the bracha Yaakov gets from Yitzchak at the very end of the parasha, after this whole story is over, has Yitzchak finally understood that one child will be chosen, or is he still not understanding that yet?
It seems that way, but I'm going to make a bold assumption, okay?
Can I just explain why I'm making that?
Yeah, read the pasuk in chapter 27, chapter 28, the first 3 lines.
Right. So after this whole story, Rivka tells
Yaakov, go get a life.
Right, good.
Because your brother will kill you.
Yeah.
And Yitzchak tells Yaakov, go get a wife.
Nice. But he also then blesses him. ויקרא יצחק את יעקב ויברך אותו ויצווה ויאמר לו לא תיקח אישה בנות כנען. So he blesses him, says, don't take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. And then he says,
go get from my family.
Yeah. Then may El Shaddai ve'El Shaddai yivarech otcha. This is verse 3. May God bless you, and v'yitem lecha et birkat Avraham. May He give you the blessing of Avraham. Lecha u'lezarecha itach lirishta et haaretz megorecha asher natan Elohim la'Avraham.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
You inherit the land that God.
That's the blessing of Bechira.
Right.
That's the Abraham blessing.
So is he getting the message that Hashem told Rivka at long last?
Now, who decides who's the only one? When we have that filtering process, whose decision is that? Who decided only Yitzchak? That's God.
Right.
Not the parents, right?
Right.
Who
would have been okay.
Who needs to decide Yitzchak and not Eisav? I mean, who decided Yitzchak? That was God. Who's going to decide Yaakov and not Eisav? That has to be God.
Right.
Yitzchak can't decide that himself. Mm-hmm. But Yitzchak isn't. What's he saying? Listen to his blessing.
Oh, I hope God chooses you.
And what's God's name?
El Shaddai.
That's unique. He says, El Shaddai yivarechotcha v'yiten lecha birkat Abraham. Where's the first time we have El Shaddai?
Remind me.
Chapter 17, the introduction to Brit Milah. El Shaddai, remember? Ani El Shaddai telefonai, but not Briti b'ni u'beinecha. It's called Brit Milah. Right before God changes Abram's name to Abram to Avraham. Mm-hmm. And promised him Yitzchak and Sarah's name Sarai, God introduces himself for the first time, I'm El Shaddai, which is the special name of Sefer Bereshit. It's unique to Sefer Bereshit.
What's special about this name, El Shaddai?
Well,
apart from the fact that it appears at important times.
And when I look at the whole story, that is exactly that Bechira process, that selecting process, because when God says only Yitzchak, right? When Avram's finally going to have a child from Sarah, when Sarah's going to be able to have a child, and we changed Sarah's name, and we changed Avram's name, God introduced himself as Ani El Shaddai, and we have what's called Brit Milah.
Interesting. So at the time when Hashem changes Abraham's name to Abraham,
God changes his name.
His own name to El
that's
Shaddai.
That's the names of God are so awesome. That's too complicated for a short podcast, but that's simply amazing. And then, how come God doesn't change Yitzchak's name?
Because he gave him.
He named him the name. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, is Yaakov going to get a name change?
Yes, he is, eventually.
And who's going to give it? Take a guess. El Shaddai. Nice. There's only 2 times in Sefer Bereshit where God announces Ani El Shaddai. Chapter 17, when Yitzchak's going to be chosen. And the name change. When he returns from Padan Aram, after he fights the Malach.
Right.
So first he gets the thing.
He gets his name from the Malach,
but
too.
when he gets to Beit El,
right.
It goes back to next week with this neder in Beit El. When he gets to Beit El, God appears to him, tells him Ani El Shaddai, and he changes his name from Yaakov to Israel.
So that's Hashem kind of, but Yaakov had that name Yisrael already from the angel. The angel called it.
That was the backup, but this makes it official.
Okay.
So God has to make it official.
Kind of like Yitzchak was already called Yitzchak by, wasn't he?
Before he was born.
Before he was born.
But he has to pass his final. He has the potential to become Yisrael, but until he fights the Malach, fighting the Malach gives him the potential to be. Right. That's the blessing he gets there. The blessing is your potential. God makes it official when he comes back to Beit El, where he made his neder. That's next week's topic.
Okay, so I'm still not clear.
Now it's possible. Now, so what's he saying? Yitzchak, knowing that El Shaddai is in charge of this choosing process, so he blesses him that El Shaddai should bless you and give you birkat Abraham.
But why does Yitzchak think that anybody should be chosen?
Because after all this happened, I'm making, I think, a logical assumption that Yitzchak and Rivka sat down to a cup of tea. Okay. There wasn't coffee yet. And
so
what happened? They must have talked because remember Yitzchak became Haredi? Remember when Eisav comes in, Yitzchak Harada Gdola?
Right.
He trembles. Okay? Something's happened. Well, and he felt that blessing work. He's a Navi. Listen, he got Nevuah.
Okay, so
he says
that trembling is...
that trembling is, oh, something's happening here, and God, God wanted this to happen.
You don't think he's just trembling because he realized
That's part of it, but it's got to be deeper. No, that's Chazal say that he realized the bracha worked. No, he felt like it matched. It worked. And how did God let that happen? There must be something big going on. And now that he realizes, it might take now after he talks to Rivka and finds out what God told her, I think it makes sense he'd have the conversation. We know they converse because he tells Rivka tells Yitzchak, to go send him to Padan Aram.
Okay.
So then Yitzchak tells him to go get a wife, etc. And then now that it's going to be another, the process is going one more generation, and they'll be choosing, El Shaddai's in charge. So now, on his way out...
So just to be clear, that very end of chapter 27, where in verse 46, where it says, Vatomer Rivka El Yitzchak, Rivka says to Yitzchak, I'd be very upset if Yaakov marries one of the Benot Chet, so better send him off. So you're saying, clearly they're having a conversation then, and maybe around that time
they must have, because we can see that from Yitzchak's approach already.
Right. So he also has this moment of Vayecharad in verse 33. Yitzchak trembles after he realizes.
I'm not sure if that's true, but I think I can. I can bring a proof that can support it. That idea that Yitzchak has the feeling something's going. Now, sometimes too many things are happening. Oh, there's something going on here.
Right.
And maybe I missed something, but now Yitzchak realizes it.
Wow.
It makes sense why he didn't think so beforehand, but now he realizes it has to go one more generation. Now again, the bigger question: why does Chumash tell us his story?
Right.
That's why I like Rabbi Yoel Ben Nun's word so beautifully, because behind the story is the essence and it's sort of the dialectic in our chosenness, that we need to be Yaakov and Eisav in one. We need both traits. We can't just be Yaakov, we can't just be Eisav. We have to be Yaakov, and sometimes we have to rest up like Eisav.
Right. We must be the person with the call Yaakov, where our essence is the voice
Yaakov,
of Yaakov, but sometimes we need to dress up.
And so our Mashiach is going to be David, who's Admoni, remember?
Right.
He's a man of war. No, it's easy then, but he writes Tehillim. So if there's one character who's the call of Yaakov and Yadam Eisav, that's David Melech, who becomes our Mashiach.
Very nice. Wow.
Who has to lie to survive sometimes? It has to do tricky things, but sometimes you need to do that. That's not ideal, but sometimes.
Is that also why this whole story is replete with trickery, which is a little bit uncomfortable to see?
It's uncomfortable, and we pay a heavy price for it, don't we?
In what respect?
Rivka was never mentioned again, and Yaakov doesn't come back right away.
And he also gets tricked.
Oh boy, does he get tricked. Yeah.
Right. So he gets repaid for his own trickery.
Yeah.
And
Chazal count the same 20 years that he's away from home, that the 20 years that Yaakov doesn't see Yosef. There's tons of, sometimes you have to lie in trickery, but realize there's a price you have to pay. It can't become an ideal. It might be a necessary evil sometimes. Wow, but make sure there's good reason for it.
So in a way, the trickery was necessary, but he still suffers as a result of it, in the sense that he gets tricked back.
Now,
in the same way that he has to fight the angel, but he ends up limping after fighting the angel.
And that's the difficulty of being a Jewish people. It's not a fairy tale.
But in the same way that sometimes if we're going back to Rav Yoel Ben Nun's vort, we have to have Yedei Eisav sometimes, even though there is a price to pay for
but that's not what you're all about.
Right.
I'll share a thought from Rav Lichtenstein. He said, I guess we'll end with this, that it always bothered him, Rav Lichtenstein Sr., when he gave a sikha, we're in Hesder, Yeshiva, and he felt that his students had more in common with their army comrades who were secular than with the Yeshiva Bachur in Hebron, who doesn't do the army. We identify, he was hoping that we'd be more Yeshiva Bachurim than soldiers. You have to be a soldier, but our essence had to be Yeshiva Bachur. And he see his Yeshiva is going that we're more army people who happen to learn a little bit as opposed to Yeshiva Bachurim who are doing a little bit of army. But that's now being able to do both, and some people are able to do both beautifully. But that's something that we're facing, that's a challenge we're facing to this day. That the army is super important and we need that to survive, but it can't be so important that it totally dwarfs the need to learn. I'm trying not to get involved in Israel's political issue, but I can understand. I hear, obviously I'm on the Hester side,
right?
But I understand where the other opinion is coming from. I think we can resolve this issue by studying Parashat Toldot properly. But of course, everyone has sees it from their own lens.
Wow.
But I guess God should bless us that each side can understand the other, and we can learn to work together and appreciate each other instead of fighting with each other.
Amen. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Rav Leibtag.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us.
Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom. Please like and subscribe. Send us your questions by commenting and share this video with your friends. Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.